Giving Pittsburgh. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Pittsburgh Current podcast. I am Pittsburgh Current editor and publisher Charlie Deitch, and we've got a fun show today. One of my old friends, James Porco, is with us to talk about Bar-jutsu, and maybe we'll talk about some of the new endeavors that Bar-jutsu is undergoing. Maybe we'll talk about some other things. We'll talk about some wrestling and some how James once gave me some ninja stars when I was looking for them.
Oh
He's the man. He's the guy to go to for battle gear. Anyway,
yes, let's tell all the parents that
they were plastic. Don't worry, folks. But I do want to say that the new issue of the Pittsburgh Current is out this week, and this week our cover feature is on Light Up Night. November 22nd is Light Up Night, and because we're on a 2-week cycle, we use this week to show off events of Light Up Night, as well as the normal lineup of music, arts, as well as David D'Angelo's Fact Check column and Brewed on Grant by Rob Rogers. So check out the new issue of the Pittsburgh Current, and also want to remind you of a couple events we have coming up on Thursday, December 5th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Speakeasy at Max's Allegheny Tavern. We are hosting a Repeal Day party. Check out PittsburghCurrent.com for all the details. And then on December 13th, we have Jim Kren's the fantastic Bill Henry Band. That's at the Roxy Theater on December 13th. So be sure to go to PittsburghCurrent.com to check that out. I got it right. So our guest today is James Porco. James is the founder of Bar-jutsu, which we'll talk about, explain that. But also Bar-jutsu isn't just a way of life anymore. It is a way of life now. It's not just a fighting style. It's a way of life. James, welcome to the show.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I've known you for quite a while, a few years now. And I think when I first knew you, you had written a book about, explain to folks what Bar-jutsu is in its original form when you wrote a book and so forth.
Okay, so originally it was it started out as a joke where it was a book about bar fighting, a humorous but educational book about bar fighting. It was glorified bathroom reading material, right. Really. And when I wrote this thing, I wrote it as it was going to be self-published, and I was going to sell them for like $5 a piece in bars and everything.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine I was letting him read it, and he said, this is actually pretty good. And I wasn't a professional writer or anything. So he had convinced me to start pitching it to companies. So we started pitching it to publishing companies, and next thing you know, it got picked up, and I had no idea it was going to get as big as it did. It became a bestseller on Amazon. It actually hit #1 for 3 weeks in Germany.
Wow.
So I was pretty impressed on that one.
A lot of bar fighting in Germany,
I guess, apparently. But in order to promote it, we created this company. The people that helped me.
Yeah.
We created this company that does these traveling beer pong tournaments. Beer pong became cornhole, became air guitar, and everything. And next thing you know, almost 10 years later, I wrote the book in 2010, and here we are in 2019, almost 10 years later, we got this TV show coming out. So
yeah. So tell us a little bit about the TV show. Like you said, you started doing beer pong tournaments in bunch of different bars, right. Some gentlemen's clubs, and different places you guys would hold these events. And
yes,
that was a good
some gentlemen's clubs.
That was a good venue for you guys.
It was a good venue, yes.
And it also, it was a draw for these places as well. So how did you? Obviously, beer pong in the last 10 years at some point became a huge thing again.
Right.
So why beer pong? How did that decision get made?
We needed something a little different. Anybody can set up a table with the cups and just play beer pong, and then the bar or the venue, the restaurant, whatever it was, could throw in $200 to the winners and everything, and that's it. So we needed a hook. We needed something that was going to draw people. Coming with my professional wrestling background, I was able to start creating championship belts in a way that I could create them for each event that we had.
Yeah.
So every time we'd have an event, it wasn't just, hey, come here and play beer pong. It was, hey, come and win these championship belts. So nobody really cared.
Right.
Nobody cared that they were coming to just play beer pong and hopefully win some money. They wanted to walk away with championship belts. And it became such a sport that like nobody cared that we were using water in the cups because the LCB doesn't allow it.
Right.
So people were just adamant about, we want to win it. We want to win it. So when people would come and play and they would lose, the first thing they would ask us is, when's your next tournament? Where's it going to be? When can I win belts?
Right.
I mean, in the past, so we started running tournaments now. We wrote the book in 2010. I want to say around 2012 is when we actually actively started doing the tournaments. I must have made somewhere up around 200 belts so far just for tournaments alone.
Right. And you make these for each. So each time you have an advertised tournament, you make a belt.
Yeah.
So we're going to get off the subject just a little bit. How did you become a belt maker? Like, where did that skill come
from?
You were an iron worker? Is that?
I was an iron worker,
Yeah.
but I actually was making belts before that. I started just like everybody else with the whole cardboard belts and everything and all that stuff. And then whenever I became a pro wrestler back in '96, started going to the indie shows and seeing what people were using for championship belts. And I was kind of like, I could make something a little better than that. So over the years, progressing to, stealing stop signs and engraving them with hand engravers, hand Dremels, up to using just, brass plates and etching them electronically. And just now the belt quality is just superb. So
how much time does it take you to make a belt?
I cut it down. It used to take me about 48 hours to make a belt. I could bust one out in about 6 now. So 6 hours to make one belt from beginning to end.
And what's so obviously there has to be, it has to be advantageous to you and your company to make these belts. Cause I mean, I'm sure even if I'm sure you're not stealing stop signs anymore. So you got materials costs.
Right. We do have material costs, but because I'm making it myself, I've been able, and because Amazon is such a lovely shopping place, we're able to find the cheapest amount of materials. And then because obviously, like you said, the cost comes into play. We don't want to be spending that, ourselves. So we get sponsors like Iron City Beer. They'll come in and they'll pay for the cost of the belts, and then they'll pay for the tournament, and that's how we make our money.
Gotcha. So flash forward, what year did you start doing these tournaments?
So we'd started about 2012 was the first actual promoted tournament. Like we did tournaments before just to kind of like do them, but to start actually promoting them like a full-fledged Bar-jutsu beer pong league started around 2012, September 2012.
So here we come 7 years later. How did this become, as you're going to announce? You guys are coming to TV this winter, this January.
We are, January 3rd, Friday night, 10 o'clock.
AT&T Sportsnet.
AT&T Sportsnet.
So how did that come about? I'm guessing that was a conversation you've been, and I know that's something that you've been thinking about for a while, is getting like some bigger exposure.
It has been with Facebook Live, giving you the opportunity to have your own forum for anything. Everybody was making their own shows. Everybody was putting anything you could on, YouTube, Facebook, or anything like that. So I said, this is something that we got to jump on. We got to get on this. We have to somehow put what we're doing on, social media and let people see it. So I started investing in some webcams and doing things like that, and then learning OBS, just from scratch, the OBS broadcast studio thing, and figuring out, hey, you know what? I could really use some graphics on here and make this a watchable series.
Right.
And instead of it just being beer pong, because you watch so many people that have their shows that are just beer pong, and you hear people laughing in the back and everything. I kind of took a little twist from like dodgeball, where we have the commentators. So now you have commentary on top of it. And it's not just commentary. I mean, like, it's going to get boring talking about a ball going from left to right. So you start adding that comedy to it. And I said, we really have something here. I need to pitch this. Mm-hmm. So I called AT&T Sportsnet and I said, listen, I have an idea for a show. And I got a hold of the programming director. And he said, all right, what do you got? And I said, Championship Beer Pong. And he started laughing and he said, thank you for your time. And I started laughing.
Yeah.
And he said, out of curiosity, I'm just wondering why you're laughing. And I said, well, if you give me 30 seconds and let me pitch what I have for you, you may not find that it's funny. Mm-hmm. Because what was I going to lose?
Yeah.
That's exactly how I said it. So he said, all right, you got my attention. Go ahead. So I pitched him. I said, what if we had a championship beer pong that did not use beer? We used water. and we televised it with commentators, funny commentators. We could bring in celebrity players, things like that, and you actually have a 30-minute show. And there it is. So we started doing that, and the next thing you know, I pitched him the idea. He said, "Go ahead and send me an episode." So we sent him an episode, and he really liked it. He was really impressed by it, but he wanted something a little bit more. He said, "I like what you're doing, but you're using webcams, and you got you don't have the greatest quality."
Right.
He's like, "But the concept is what I really like." So after that, he said, "Go ahead and try it again. Pitch me another pilot, but we want you to pitch it with, get multiple cameras, don't have as many graphics on the screen." So as what you guys see right now was the final pilot that we pitched, and they ended up picking it up. And now January 3rd, 2020, we will be on AT&T Sportsnet.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So where's the, so many questions.
So many.
So so will the season be will it be several tournaments? Will it be one tournament over the course of a season?
So it's going to be one tournament. This first season is going to be one tournament, 8 teams over the course of one season. Each week you'll be able to see 2 separate teams. For at least the first 4 weeks, you'll see 2 different teams on the screen until we get into round 2, and then the people that advanced from the first round will go into the second round. So then once they complete the second round, then the final 2 teams will take off and compete in a championship round. So that only leads us to the 7 episodes. We have to do 8 as required for a season.
Right.
So I think what we're going to do is for the 8th season, the winner of the finals is going to compete against the current champions, the Ward Street Boys, for the championship belts.
Now, where was their title claimed? Who sanctions their title?
So they were. We were in the Bar-jutsu Academy up in Carrick,
right?
Which is no more. We actually just sold it because now that we're moving on and moving up, we don't have enough time to do the things we're doing. So they actually won it there, and they represented us and Iron City Beer in Vegas at the World Series of Beer Pong last year. They actually made it to the final day. It's a 3-day event. They made it to the final day. Didn't win the championship, but it was pretty impressive. So shout out to the Ward Street Boys. So they'll definitely be part of the production this time around. So we're looking forward to that.
So the teams that you're going to have playing in this, are they, is this, and I don't know if you've filmed it all yet or not, but is this something that, is this going to be just kind of one open tournament? Or the teams hand selected from sort of the best that you've seen throughout the different?
They were actually selected by the sponsors.
Oh.
So whatever sponsors decided that they wanted to buy in, we were only doing a limited 8 for the first season.
Right.
I'm sure next season we'll do 16 teams or something like that. We want to make it longer. The way that we wanted to do this was we didn't want it to be like we didn't want it to drag on for months.
Sure.
And then it gets stale.
Right.
So we said, all right, we're going to do 8 teams. That's it. We'll keep it fresh every episode.
Yeah.
So you see new faces every episode. And after 2 months, whenever the championship is said and done, when we do it again, everybody's ready for the next season.
Yeah. What's the atmosphere like around these matches? Is it obviously you have people there watching, but is there I don't know, I think beer pong would be a great place to practice your smack talk and so forth. And
it is. It's funny. When we start doing it, the crowd that watches, that gathers around, they get really into it, right?
Right.
To the point where they're so silent because they don't want to upset anyone. So we have to tell them, we're like, guys, you can cheer them on.
Yeah.
You can, ham it up a little bit. So they get all excited. But the smack talk, usually in the first round, the first game, the teams they're pretty sporty with each other. There's nothing really going on. Usually around the end of the second and the third match, smack talk it begins. Like you see with the spinsters, they start wearing their low cut shirts, and they think that's gonna intimidate the other side.
A distraction.
Yeah.
So what are some? I mean, and we've all played beer pong probably in some form or another. What are some of the nuances though that make a team good versus make a team just, well, me and my cousin playing something like that?
I think the rules have a lot to play with it. A lot of people, they play like the college rules and stuff. They play things like island, celebrity shot, and all that. What we do is we make it the most basic form of beer pong. And we eliminate any of the no leans. So we use an 8-foot table. It's got boundaries on it, so you can't lean across. We have a referee Kristen L. She's a great ref. She watches for the leans. She watches for anything. But one of the big rules that we have that nobody has, it's very unique. It's called the psych out rule. You get 2 re-racks at any time during gameplay. That means any time. So if you shoot and then your partner is about to shoot and the other team calls for a re-rack and your partner shoots without re-racking that and makes that cup, the cup doesn't count because you have to honor the re-rack at any time.
Yeah.
So that's a very unique rule that nobody else has. And whenever you should see some of the teams, whenever they're like, what kind of rule is that?
Right.
You know? And you're like, it's the psych out rule.
Yeah.
So, and if you actually watch the episode with the Spinsters versus Beer Money, there's a shot that's made that Dale calls for the re-rack and they make it and they lose it. And then whenever he calls for it again, she actually controls herself. And you can see the amount of control. They really get into it. So the difference between just setting up a table with beer pong at anybody's house and just playing and the way that we do it is it gets taken so much more seriously. You actually have to appreciate the players because you watch them and they really get into it and they're really focused on it. They realize they're like, I'm not just here to play just to get drunk and win. I'm here for like championship gold. Right. You know, so it gets really intense to watch it. And you find yourself watching an episode like that, Beer Money versus the Spinsters. It's a 23-minute episode on social media. Next thing you know, you're 20 minutes into it and you're like, I sat and watched this whole thing. I'm sitting here as a grown adult watching beer pong and I'm enjoying it. And it's just something that we felt that needed to be put out there. You know, you got championship darts, championship cornhole. It's all being televised now, but nobody has come out and said, let's televise championship beer pong because nobody's taken the time to say, this is what we need to do to make this an effective show and an enjoyable show.
Yeah. I like the psych out rule. It's kind of like icing the kicker in football, you know, call that timeout right as they already kicked the ball. So that's pretty cool. And so are the rules something that you kind of tinkered with over the years, just sort of find out? I mean, you not only want, I mean, obviously there's, you know, fair play, whatever, but there's also, you want something that is going to make the game different, make the game a little more exciting, right?
Right. The way that we catered to it was that we wanted it so that it's, we eliminated the fourth row of cups, so it's only 6 cups. It's not 10. Most people use a 10-cup table. We use 6 cups.
Is that for speed or is that for?
That's for speed. Yeah. That's to cut the time down. And also, like I said, we wanted the rules to be as basic as possible because you don't want a ringer coming in and just sinking it. Most games, if you make 2, you get both of them back, and then you shoot again and you get them both back. For ours, if you make 2 cups, you only get 1 back. We don't really care about the order that you shoot. A lot of teams will say, you know, well, he shot first and then she shot second, so that's how it has to go the rest of the game. We don't really play it that way. We let them shoot how they want. Yeah. But we keep them, like I said, as basic as possible to keep the time frame down and just to kind of like weed out the garbage players. Yeah. I hate to say it like that, but you do get players that they're so garbage that one round will last 45 minutes. Wow. And you just have to cut it. You have to say, come on, you know, it's got to end soon.
That's too much.
You know, mercy
for
rule is just
one game.
Yeah.
So as we kind of mentioned, I think we mentioned it, we were talking about it before the show, but so along with Bar-jutsu, the show, you've also got a video game coming out next year, right?
Yeah, actually, it should have came out a few weeks ago.
Okay.
The company that developed it, Mega Cat Studios here in Pittsburgh, we got together about 3 years ago, and I had an idea for a game. It turned out it was going to be an 8-bit game that you were going to be able to play on a console. And then one thing changed to another, and then the format changed. Now it's a 3D game that you can play on the iPhone and Android. It's actually downloadable now, but it's not the final version of it. So what's unique about it is that you get to pick a character and you play through several levels. Iron City is one of the levels in the game, and the points that you score that they were going to originally be Facebook likes. They're now called social media whatevers. Right. The points that you score, you accrue in the game, you can actually cash them in at Sport Clips, any Sport Clips nationally. Wow. For a haircut. Wow. So, and I will see, because I'm not a petty fellow, I will say this. James had this idea so long ago. We actually both worked at Steel City Media. That's where we met. And it's been so long ago, I worked at City Paper, which is a level,
but that's actually a level that I helped James. I said, you should check
It
with,
is.
and they did. So, I want to be the final boss, but no luck there, I'm sure. But no, I want people to know that I fully support the game, and it's really good. So, what gives you, like, where do you get the idea? Like, I mean, their marketing ideas is what they are. They're obviously
Mm-hmm.
so. I mean, where do you come up with these ideas in terms of you have this book that somehow you've turned into like a beer pong tournament and a fighting video. It's a fighting game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fighting video game. So, I mean, where do the ideas come from? Is it just you're like looking for some different way to different things to do, or is it?
They honestly, most of them come to me while I'm sleeping.
Right.
I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Or even if it's a terrible idea, I write it down and I go, well, how can I tweak this idea and make it better? It's just my brain is constantly going. I'm not by no means like creative genius or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's my thing is I want to give people things that they want. And people always want fighting. People always want drinking.
Right.
Right. And if there's a way to combine it,
fighting and drinking, they're combined a lot, actually.
And people like the video games.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So people they enjoy everything that I'm giving them. And of course, we have the Bar-jutsu girls, so you got to give them the sex. So if we can combine the fighting, the video games, the drinking, and the sex, and figure out some sort of product, that's where Bar-jutsu really got its start.
I wanted to ask because, again, when this idea came, the video game idea came, it was an 8-bit game. And I know, like,
it was, yes.
You're really excited about it. And it was really cool because at that time, you can buy not even an old Nintendo. You can buy a new system to play 8-bit games and so forth. But it was really like 3 or 4 years ago. That was really kind of a big thing, kind of come back. So are you disappointed at all or you think this is it's obviously a better version being 3D, but obviously it's going to have a different feel too.
Right. I don't think the 8-bit generation was really accepted by the millennials so much. So I think when it came back retro a few years ago, that was the big thing. It was exciting. But now that I look at it and talking to the developer and everything, it is definitely a better fit the way it is now with the 3D format, the graphics and everything, because it's more enjoyable, it's playable. My whole thinking was, what I told them was, I want a video game that you're not just going to play and get bored with. I want something that has that feel of like Contra or Kung Fu,
sure,
or even Double Dragon, where you're just like, I don't care what level I'm on. I just love playing this game. And that's why we came up with the idea, well, let's play beer pong, because you can always just sit down while you're waiting for something and play the computer in beer pong, just flicking the ball across the screen. And then we added Flip Cup. So Flip Cup is good. And then he changed it. So the developer explained that to have it as a fighting game like you would with the thumbs,
sure,
it would take up too much of the screen and you wouldn't be able to see it. So he had suggested switching to RPG mode.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a big fan of RPG, and then once he showed me what it was like, and I started playing some RPG games, like Super Mario RPG.
Yeah.
I started really getting hooked, and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited because it apparently most people the majority of the people enjoy RPG style. So that kind of makes me excited to see it come out that way.
And give a shout out again to the game company. It's
Mega Cat
Studios. Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Good dude.
Love
Yeah.
you.
So where does Bar-jutsu go from here? Is it like another game? Is it like another endeavor? Is it kind of growing what you have, or do you have plans for the future?
Well, I just kind of go with it and go as it takes me. I don't really have any big plans. I don't say this is what I want to do. No, okay, that's a lie.
Right. I was going to call bullshit
ultimately, I have. I've always had this in my back pocket.
Yeah.
An idea for a movie. It would be a cheesy, obviously not A-lister movie, but I have an idea for a movie about an underground fight thing, not Fight Club-ish, but that would turn into a comedy. That ultimately, if that's where I would go, I would say we would make a Bar-jutsu movie. It would be nothing. It would have nothing to do with me or like the start of it, the origin of Bar-jutsu or any of that.
Your
stuff.
origin story, the James Porco origin story,
the radioactive beer bottle. But it would be a story about basically bar fighting,
Yeah,
but taken to an underground level.
It'd be kind of cool with like local talent. You get a Pittsburgh dad or a Kurt Angle.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, it would be
I would
great.
absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it gets to a point where we can shoot that, I'd be all in. I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it.
So is this it's obviously, I mean, it's grown a lot in the last few years. You guys even had a and I do want to talk a little bit just because it's a personal interest to me. It actually was I don't want to say it was the most fascinating thing for me at the time when I met you to learn that you were a professional wrestler.
Right.
And Bar-jutsu, you even had a wrestling title, correct?
We do. It's actually
it's still active?
Yes, it is. It's actually in the car as we speak. But yeah, Mike Blade is our current champion.
Still.
He still is. We keep it on him because we're just happy with what he does. He's a hell of a promoter whenever he gets out there and pushes the product. So the Bar-jutsu championship belt.
So he travels around to different promotions. Is that?
Yeah, it hasn't lately,
Yeah.
just because we've been doing so much, and Mike Blade has been so busy, he hasn't been able to actually promote it as much.
Right.
But it does wherever he goes, it goes with him.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about maybe having him. I hate to say it like this, but having him drop it to a younger, sorry, Mike, but like to a
Wait,
younger.
what do you mean drop it? What are you talking about?
Like, but passing the torch, as we would say. We've been talking about passing the torch to somebody else and getting it out there. I know Kristen works with RWA, and they were talking about doing something, but that's still in the works. We'll see how that goes.
Is that a title belt you made?
No, actually,
it was originally, right? And did you get
the original Bar-jutsu championship belt was a steel sign. It was a stop sign.
Yeah.
That we were using, and then I ran into Dave Milliken, who makes the belts for WWE, one of the belt makers for WWE, and told him about the concept that we were doing and everything, and I showed him the belt that we had, and he was pretty impressed with the stop sign version. And I said, but I'm sure you can make something a little better.
Yeah.
And we kind of worked together on a design for it, because I told him I was a big fan of the old school Intercontinental belt. So it is based off of that, and it still shines to this day.
I would keep that big ass stop sign to regular size and just wear that sucker around. That'd be great.
It is. That's still a nice one. I still like it. It's the big. We use the original bottle cap logo for Bar-jutsu with the beer chucks on the side plates. So it's still a nice belt to have in my basement on display. We carry the big one, the big dog around.
Absolutely. So let's finish up today talking a little bit about your wrestling. You kind of got your start. You started wrestling. Were you a fan growing up? Was it?
I was a big fan growing up. It really. There was just something about performing. Even when I was a kid, I kind of knew it was all performance, because it was like, nobody really does that. And then you hear the stories, you're like, is it real? Is it not? But I knew that the day that I turned 18, I was like, this is what I want to do.
Really?
So when I turned 18, I went into looking into start, and we were talking about this before. I'd started at PWX, and I was the low man. Oh man, I was the jobber and a half. But moved on from there. Started working for some other local indie promotions.
Where'd you train initially?
I initially trained at PWX.
Okay,
and then after that, I moved on, and I met New Jack, and New Jack actually retrained me. I was able to start traveling with him, getting in the ring with people like Shane Douglas and things like that. It was pretty exciting to start learning tips from other people, like ECW people.
Right.
And then you would come back to Pittsburgh and start doing these indie shows, and it was a whole new wrestler in the ring. Different look, different gimmick, and just different style. And but it had its benefits and its advantages and disadvantages. Going on the road and meeting all these people like, Rob Van Dam and all that stuff. Spike Dudley was a big influence. We hit it off really well. Yeah. But that's when you start learning what behind the scenes is really like.
Right.
When you see these people that you ran into or you watched for years, you idolized them for years. And when you introduce yourself, the first thing they ask is if you have a Xanax, and you're like,
wow.
No, I don't really do anything like that. So it really kind of like took the taste out of my mouth. Yeah. And I saw that was actually when I decided to stop wrestling. was right around when Bar-jutsu began, because I said,
Yeah.
I need something else to do.
Yeah.
You know, I was used to traveling every weekend, going and doing these shows.
Sure.
And then I started teaching martial arts again, because I have been doing it since I was 8 years old. You know, so I'm 41 now, and just deciding, hey, there's something I got to do with this. So when I was doing these outdoor classes, and people kept asking me where would I do these techniques, and I said in a bar. That's how Bar-jutsu began. So
Right.
the wrestling career ended for a short time. I did come out of retirement for a one-time match last January, not the one that just passed, but 2 Januaries ago.
Yeah.
Just so my daughter could see me wrestle one last time.
That's
before
cool.
I turned 40.
For those for the uninformed, give like a 45-second, 60-second thumbnail sketch of who New Jack is.
Oh, oof. The New Jack. Okay. What was that movie, Beyond the Mat?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
New Jack.
He's in that.
If you need to know who New Jack is, watch Beyond the Mat. New Jack is, I tell you what, one of the most lovable guys ever that I've met. Really took me under his wing, but a bit psychotic. He's the original gangster from ECW. He just very hardcore. You know, feared by a lot, adored by just as many. Yeah,
I think if you look back at like a lot of the horrific stories that have come out of professional wrestling, New Jack is tied to a lot of them.
He is. He is definitely tied. He you know, he boasts about his 4 justifiable homicides.
Right.
When he was a bounty hunter, which actually that goes into another story about whenever me and him connected, he found out that I myself was a bail enforcement agent. Mm-hmm. So he had an idea to do a show called New Jack Bounty Hunter and Beyond. We filmed the pilot for A&E and it got picked up.
Really?
And then he ended up getting into a little incident with Dog the Bounty Hunter, and the next thing I know, our show was canceled.
Wow.
So, and you can actually YouTube that. You'll see I was like 305 pounds in that pilot. It doesn't even look like me. Bald head, douchebag chin strap. It was pretty crazy.
That's great. Yeah, no, he's definitely like spend a little time Googling New Jack. It's some entertaining stuff. James, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I really appreciate catching up with you, and good luck with the future endeavors. I think that I know it's something that you've been something you've been working hard toward for a long time. So it's glad to see it paying off for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And this has been the Pittsburgh Current podcast. You can check out the current edition of the Pittsburgh Current. Yeah, I know it's too many currents. On the streets now, our coverage of Light Up Night, and then all your latest arts and music and news coverage. We will see you next week. Pittsburgh, a better alternative. Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.